The passengers on Flight 327 sat in tense silence as the hijackers barked orders. A man with a black ski mask stood at the front of the plane, waving a gun. Everyone sit still. No one tries to be a hero, and no one gets hurt. Screams erupted when another masked man dragged a terrified flight attendant to the aisle. The situation was spiraling out of control. Then, suddenly, from seat 14C, a woman stood up. She was in her mid-30s, with piercing dark eyes and an air of calm confidence. "Sit down," the hijacker snarled, pointing his gun at her. The woman ignored him. "You're panicking," she said, her voice steady. "That's why this will never work." "What did you just say?" The man stepped closer, pressing the gun to her forehead. She smirked. "I said you don't know what you're doing." Before he could react, she twisted his wrist with lightning speed, forcing the gun away. A swift elbow to his jaw sent him crashing into the seats. The second hijacker turned to fire, but she was already moving. With expert precision, she slammed his head into an armrest, knocking him unconscious. Gasps filled the cabin. The SWAT team stormed in moments later, securing the scene. But as the woman sat down, she avoided eye contact with the officers. She had handled things, but she didn't want questions. A week later, Yasmin Liu adjusted the collar of her blazer and looked up at the sign, Brookside High School. It had been years since she decided to turn her life around, but she knew that her past would always follow her. She had been given this job despite her lack of traditional teaching experience. The principal, Mr. Whitmore, was skeptical but desperate. "I've seen all kinds of teachers," he told her. "But this class? They ran off 4 teachers in 1 semester." Yasmin chuckled. "No bad students, only bad teachers, right?" Whitmore sighed. "Wait till you meet them." Inside, the classroom was pure chaos. Ambrose, a wiry teenager with a scar on his eyebrow, had his feet up on a desk. Dario and Brennan, his 2 loyal friends, snickered as they threw crumpled papers. "Class? Meet your new teacher, Miss Liu," the principal announced. Ambrose grinned. "Another one, huh? Let's see how long she lasts." Yasmin locked eyes with him. "I've met tougher punks than you." The room went silent. Dario whispered she got a death wish? But Yasmin wasn't intimidated. After all, she had once led a real gang. Years ago, Yasmin and her younger brother, Kai, had no family. Orphaned at a young age, they survived by stealing food and running errands for street criminals. One night, after being chased by a rival gang, Yasmin caught the attention of the Black Vultures, a notorious crime syndicate. "She's got guts," their leader Dante had said. At first, she ran small jobs, carrying messages, distracting cops. Then came the real work, collecting debts, shaking down shop owners, learning to fight. She became ruthless because she had to. When Dante was arrested, a war broke out within the gang. Yasmin, now known as the Raven, outsmarted the competition and took control. She led the Black Vultures for 2 years, ruling the streets with an iron fist. But then, something changed. One night, Kai was nearly killed in a deal gone wrong. Seeing her brother covered in blood, Yasmin realized that this life would destroy them both. So, she disappeared. She took her brother, moved states, and faked a new identity. She decided to become a teacher, not because she was qualified, but because she wanted to stop kids from making the same mistakes. Back in the classroom, Yasmin watched as Ambrose picked a fight with another student. She grabbed his wrist before he could throw a punch. "Let go of me," he growled. "You fight because you think you have to," Yasmin said. "But that's not strength." Ambrose hesitated. No teacher had ever spoken to him like that. Over time, Yasmin began earning their respect. She helped Dario with his home problems, got Brennan to open up about his mother's illness, and even managed to get Ambrose to trust her. But trouble was brewing. A dangerous biker gang had started targeting Brookside students. And one night, Brennan got caught up in something dangerous. Brennan staggered into the classroom, bruises on his face. "What happened?" Yasmin demanded. They made me deliver something," Brennan muttered. "Drugs." Yasmin's fists clenched. "Who made you?" "Carl Shannon," he whispered. Yasmin froze. Carl Shannon. She knew that name. He had been one of her old enemies, the man who had tried to take the black vultures from her. And now, he was running for mayor while secretly trafficking drugs. The next day, Ambrose stormed into Yasmin's office. "I'm going after them." "No," she said firmly. "They're hurting our people," Ambrose insisted. Yasmin sighed. She saw her younger self in him. "You don't win by fighting their way," she said. "You win by being smarter." That night, Yasmin tracked down Carl's gang. She confronted them alone, taking down 3 men before reaching Carl. "Well, if it isn't the Raven," Carl sneered. "You're finished, Carl," Yasmin said. "Who's going to stop me?" "You." "No. The whole city." Yasmin had been recording the conversation. Moments later, sirens blared, and the police swarmed in. Carl was arrested in the middle of his campaign speech. The headlines exploded the next day. Mayoral candidate exposed AS crime kingpin. At school, Yasmin faced the principal. "I was wrong about you," Mr. Whitmore admitted. "And I was wrong about those kids." Ambrose, Dario, and Brennan stood behind her, grinning. "I told you," Yasmin said. "Never judge people by appearances." As she walked into class, Ambrose raised a hand. "Miss Liu," respectfully, "who the heck are you?" Yasmin smiled. "Sit down, Ambrose. Let me tell you a story." The students of Brookside High had no idea their new teacher had just taken down a major crime syndicate. As far as they were concerned, Miss Liu was just another strict but strangely fearless educator. But for Ambrose, Dario, and Brennan, things were different. After everything she had done for them, they saw her as more than just a teacher. She was one of them, someone who understood what it meant to fight for survival. Still, Yasmin knew she couldn't keep her past buried forever. Carl Shannon was just one of the ghosts haunting her. There were still people out there who remembered the Raven, people who would want her gone. And soon enough, one of them would come looking. It started with a message. A note, tucked inside her car door. 3 words scrawled in red ink, "We found you." Yasmin's blood ran cold. She hadn't heard from the Black Vultures in years. After she'd abandoned her position as leader, the gang had splintered. Some of them had been arrested. Others had disappeared. But one man had always vowed revenge. Luca the Serpent Morello. Luca had been Yasmin's rival when she was in charge. He wanted the power she had walked away from. If he was back, that meant only one thing. He was taking the vultures out of hiding. And he wanted Yasmin dead. Ambrose had been skipping class. Yasmin noticed immediately. At first, she assumed he was up to his usual tricks, maybe causing trouble around town. But then, Brennan let something slip. "He's been asking around about some old gang," Brennan mumbled, eyes downcast. Yasmin's heart dropped. She confronted Ambrose after school. "Are you trying to get yourself killed?" she demanded. Ambrose scoffed. "Relax, Teach. I just wanted to know why those guys were looking for you." "You what?" Yasmin grabbed his collar, pulling him close. "Tell me exactly what you did." "I found some guys who used to run with the vultures," Ambrose admitted. "I asked about Luca." "You idiot!" Yasmin let go of him, pacing back and forth. "Luca doesn't care about me anymore. But if he thinks I'm back in the game, he'll come for me." Ambrose crossed his arms. "So what? You scared?" Yasmin turned to him, her dark eyes burning with intensity. "You don't know what fear is, kid. But you're about to learn." Yasmin knew there was only one way to stop Luca. She had to face him. The meeting was set at an abandoned warehouse. Yasmin arrived alone, dressed in black, her old instincts kicking in. Luca was waiting inside, leaning against a crate, a smug grin on his face. "Well, well," he said. "The Raven returns." Yasmin didn't waste time. "You left me a message." Luca chuckled. "I had to make sure you still remembered me." "I remember everything," Yasmin said coldly. "So tell me what you want." "I want what's mine." Luca stepped forward. "You abandoned the vultures. You left us to rot. But me? I rebuilt everything. And now, I'm taking my city back." Yasmin smirked. "It was never yours." Luca's smile faded. "Still got that attitude, huh?" "I'm not the same girl I was back then," Yasmin said. "I don't play games anymore." Luca's eyes darkened. "Neither do I." That's when the doors slammed shut. Yasmin barely had time to react before armed men stepped out of the shadows surrounding her. Ambrose had followed her. The moment he saw the gang closing in, he didn't hesitate. "Miss Lou's in trouble," he whispered to Dario and Brennan. "We're going in." "Are you crazy?" Dario hissed. "These guys are killers." Ambrose grinned. "Yeah. And she's one of them." The boys moved fast. They slipped into the warehouse, hiding behind crates as they watched Luca's men close in on Yasmin. Yasmin, however, didn't look scared. She rolled her shoulders. "You really brought an army just for me?" "I'm flattered." Luca sneered. "You were always a fighter. But this time, you're outnumbered." Yasmin took a deep breath. Then she cracked her knuckles. "Let's find out." She moved like lightning, grabbing the first thug's arm, twisting it until he screamed. A sharp kick sent another one flying into the crates. But there were too many. Just as one of them raised a knife, a loud crash echoed through the warehouse. Ambrose had thrown a metal pipe straight at Luca's head. "What the hell?" Luca growled, staggering back. Yasmin's eyes widened. "Ambrose? What are you doing here? Saving your ass?" Ambrose shouted. Chaos erupted. Dario and Brennan joined the fight, swinging whatever they could find. Yasmin fought harder than ever, protecting the boys while taking down Luca's men one by one. Finally, it was just Luca left. He stumbled back, holding his side where Yasmin had hit him. "This isn't over," he spat. Yasmin stepped forward. "Yes, it is." Before he could run, flashing lights filled the warehouse. Sirens. The cops had arrived. Luca was arrested, along with the rest of the vultures. Yasmin and the boys made it out just in time, slipping away before the cops could ask too many questions. Back at school, Mr. Whitmore called Yasmin into his office. "Miss Lou," he said, folding his hands. "I heard rumors about what happened last night." Yasmin tensed. Whitmore held up a hand. "I don't want to know. All I know is, for the first time, Ambrose, Dario, and Brennan are staying out of trouble." Yasmin smiled. "They just needed someone to believe in them." Whitmore sighed. "And who believed in you?" Yasmin looked away. "I had to believe in myself." As she walked out, Ambrose and the others were waiting. "So," Ambrose said, crossing his arms, "are you going to tell us everything now?" Yasmin smirked. "Fine. But after that, we're turning to page 72 in your textbooks." Dario groaned. "Ugh, not math again." They all laughed. For the first time in years, Yasmin felt like she belonged. And this time, she wasn't leading a gang, she was leading a family. The storm had finally passed. Yasmin Lou had spent years running from her past, but now, she no longer needed to. The black vultures were dismantled, Luca Morello was locked away, and for the first time in a long while, she could finally breathe. But the biggest change wasn't in the city, it was in herself. She stood at the front of her classroom, watching as Ambrose, Dario, and Brennan scribbled away on their assignments. They were still troublemakers, still rough around the edges, but now, They had something they never had before: hope. Ambrose, the reckless leader, had found someone to look up to. Dario, who had once believed he wasn't good enough, had started believing in himself. Brennan, who had always kept his head down, now walked with confidence. And Yasmin? She was no longer the Raven. She was Miss Lu, a teacher who had made a difference. One afternoon, as she packed her things to leave, Ambrose stopped by her desk. "So," he said, rubbing the back of his neck, "you ever think about quitting?" Yasmin raised an eyebrow. "Why? Are you trying to get rid of me?" He smirked. "Nah. Just wondering if you're bored now that you're not, fighting gangsters every night." Yasmin chuckled. "Let's just say, I prefer this fight." Ambrose nodded. "Good. 'Cause I think we kinda need you around." She smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest she hadn't felt in years. For a long time, Yasmin had believed that redemption wasn't possible, that once you lived in the dark, you could never step into the light. But now she knew better. She had found her purpose. And this time, she wasn't looking back.